This is the Final Whistle podcast from the Wrexham AFC media team.
The final score, Wrexham 1, Barnet 0. Ooh, that was hard work. I'll tell you for nothing. A game that you could break into very specific phases, really, in all honesty. The first half saw Barnet essentially park the bus, really. They came with an awful lot of injuries. In fact, only had 4 substitutes on the bench. And I think their approach was dictated by that. They sat deep, didn't really cross the halfway line very often, and drew Wrexham onto them. Wrexham weren't able to get the sort of momentum they got going against Ebbsfleet in their last home game, and were patient, trying to grind them down. You wondered whether the balance of the Wrexham side didn't help them in some senses, because having Walker and Wright in the centre of midfield meant that maybe they just lacked an extra creative element, which Luke Young might have brought. But they were solid, they were attritional, they wore away at Barnet, but didn't create many clear-cut chances, in all honesty. In the 6th minute, an interesting one to look back on, as Bevan did ever so well with a difficult bouncing ball, managed to hook it onto Holroyd, one-on-one with the keeper. The flag went up. It must have been tight, and to be perfectly honest, neither Lee or myself on the commentary and Callan FM thought he was offside. It'd be interesting to see that back again and see whether he actually was. Then after that, 15th minute came the big chance before the goal. A glorious opportunity, a long ball forwards. Holroyd, this time I did think was offside, coming back from behind the final defender, flicked the ball on superbly in the air. Maguire drew one-on-one with the keeper in the box, all on his own, on his left foot. Really would have fancied his chance to finish. Pulled it wide of the right post. A really disappointing finish, that. Then most of the other chances Wrexham made were basically coming from corners. A corner swept into the box, goalkeeper Cousins fumbling, gets a Keel Wright doing really well to get to the loose ball first and poke it on, but he couldn't keep it in and managed to knock it out for a corner. Maguire just swept a horrible corner in across a very crowded goalmouth. The keeper couldn't get to it, and Pearson's marker, standing virtually on the line, just got the touch and somehow looped over him, off him and over the bar for another corner. When that was swung in, Cousins did well to get a decent right hand to it and push it clear in the crowd. And when that corner came in, a poor punch by Cousins led to a bit of a scramble, but the Barnet were able to get the ball clear. So it looked like they were going to dig in and get to half-time. But in the 43rd minute, Wrexham took the lead with a goal which was very opportunistic and maybe a little bit fortuitous as well. Carrington, who was pretty progressive down the left-hand side, and an impressive game. It was his 300th league game of his career. Carrying the ball forwards, threaded the ball in towards the danger area. I think he was looking for Holroyd, to be honest, but instead Bevan, alert as ever, latched onto it and down the left channel, a very tight angle, kept his cool and slotted an accurate finish across to keeper Cousins and inside the far post to give Wrexham the lead. And that changed the nature of the match and led us to the second phase of the match, which was the first half of the second half, when Barnet tried to come out, but it looked more likely that they get picked off on the break than they would score. Now, the first noteworthy effort in the first minute of the second half, sloppy work between Lawler and Walker twice, allowing Barnet to get the ball into the box. And in the end, Fonguk, who was very quiet in the first half, but was impressive in the second, from a tight angle, in fact, pretty much from the same position that Bevan scored from, went for power rather than subtlety, and therefore didn't have the desired effect. Leighton stood up well, got a good block in with his body and grabbed the loose ball sharply. And then from then on, Wrexham were pushing on and creating opportunities. A short throw to Maguire Drew, who cut inside and hit a wicked cross towards the near post. Bevan had made an intelligent run from the far post and just couldn't get enough on it to hook the ball goalwards. Under a lot of pressure from the defender, he put it wide of the near post. Within a minute, another opportunity. Again, Bevan's sharpness was key, winning the ball in the edge of the area, bursting down the right side of the box. By now, Fondop was on for the injured Chris Holroyd. Fondop, well, it was tempting at the far post, but I think probably the cross wasn't on. So Bevan did well to pull the ball out, trying to pull the ball back for a Keel Wright. The pull back intercepted, span to the edge of the area, and Maguire Drew ripped in a curler which was aiming for the top left corner and just scraped the top of the left post. I say Holroyd was gone by then. Impressive first half from him, really buzzing around, chasing things, winning an awful lot of headers against some good big centre backs, but he went down with what looked worryingly like a hamstring. It was not long. He was bursting between the two centre-backs, looked at the pace to get in behind them, and then suddenly pulled up. It was an alarming moment. Having said that, he looked like he was getting treated for cramp rather than hamstring. Maybe just started to cramp up there, and he walked over the sides of the pitch looking pretty comfortable, and we wondered whether he'd come back on, but he didn't. Fondop did replace him. Hopefully that was precautionary, but yeah, it was alarming to see him go down, so let's hope there's good news coming out from that one. Wrexham continued to hit on the break and looked a more dangerous team anyway in Holroyd's absence. There was a further opportunity when a corner was swept in. A poor punch led to a scramble. The ball dropped to a Keel Riser. Maybe didn't quite realise just how close he was to goal and flipped the ball over the bar from very, very close range. Then another moment of danger as Bevan burst down the left, beat his man, passed the ball inside to Fondop, running in towards the area, got to within 20 yards and then pulled his shot rather wide of the right post, and maybe a pass was a better idea. Paul Rutherford, who by then had replaced Jordan Maguire-Drew, was running into space at the far post. That substitution was interesting though as a reaction to the fact that the game was entering its third phase. Barnet coming at Wrexham, starting to get a bit more joy. They were conservative using their players off the bench. Like I said, only 4 options off the bench, one of whom was a sub-keeper, so they were rather limited, but they managed to manipulate their available resources and get some real threat down the flank. Sparks and Fonguk down the left particularly starting to rip a regular procession of balls in, and when Kiai, the substitute, was brought on, he looked very threatening and has good quality in the ball like Maguire-Drew does, and was setting the ball up on the right hand side and sending some good balls in. Wrexham defended their penalty area well, but they were coming under some pressure, and Rutherford on for Maguire-Drew was, I think, an attempt to try and support Kevin Roberts, who had an impressive game going forward and won a lot of good tackles, but was starting to get doubled up on his right hand side. Still though, Wrexham had one more chance in them, and it was, well, if it had gone in, would have been a fine goal. 17 minutes left, an excellent move. Ball played out to the Barnet left, where Maguire-Drew did really well to get there ahead of Mason Clark, knock him out of the way. In fact, Mason Clark stayed down and eventually was substituted as a result of the challenge. He burst past him brilliantly, no hint of a foul, surged 20 yards down the wing, and then swung a ball in towards the edge of the area. Nice measured nod down by Fondop towards Bevan, who bravely jumped in ahead of his man to head the ball himself into the box, and Summerfield back to goal, tried the first time hooked shot. Think Google David Platt 1990 World Cup Belgium if you don't remember that goal. That sort of effort, and put it just wide of the left post. It would have been a fine goal had it gone in, but it didn't, and that led to a really tense conclusion for Wrexham. Like I said, a lot of balls had come into the box threateningly as Barnet started to increase their threat, and in the closing stages that threat really multiplied, and Wrexham found themselves defending very deep, relying a lot on Sean Pearson, who made a couple of key interceptions in the box, and on some expert time wasting by Rob Lainton, who was working it like a good one. They had a couple of nervous moments. Drilled Fonga cross, which flew across the face of goal, nobody able to get a touch onto it, and then the last minute of normal time. But really, if I'm honest, Barnet's one really good effort of the game. A corner half clears, the substitute Kai got the ball back on the right hand side, swept the ball into the box, and Robson was climbing with a looping header which just dropped over the bar. He was aiming for the top left corner, just had too much on it. Barnet, well, firstly, I think should be very pleased with themselves to have come with a depleted squad, shown proper spirit, defended grittily in the first half, only to crack to a slightly lucky goal, and then in the second half, having admittedly ridden their luck a little bit at the start of the first half, to come at Wrexham and really ask questions. And they've really got to ask another question now. Why didn't they approach in a more positive sense from the start? Because I think if they'd gone at Wrexham in that manner throughout the game, they would have caused a lot of problems and quite possibly would have pierced Wrexham's defence. But as it is, Wrexham dug in, got a key victory with the teams above them all winning, and as a result are able to push on and feel optimistic with another home game to come on Saturday. For further analysis, have a little listen to what Lee Milford and myself thought of the game on Callan FM after the final whistle.
This is the Final Whistle podcast from the Wrexham AFC media team.
Well, I've just looked at my watch and it's telling me my heart rate is 66 beats per minute. I must have iron nerves because the last half hour, and especially the last 10 minutes then, oh, that was hard work, wasn't it?
It was. I mean, I couldn't breathe for the last 2 minutes of that. They were putting us under constant pressure. Fondop wasn't holding it up as well as we'd have liked. And when you watch the highlights back, look out for Sean Pearson in that last couple of minutes too. I think it was one amazing interception and one amazing header. Fantastic, exactly what you want from your captain to win a 1-0.
Yeah, he really battled away. I mean, he was like that on Tuesday as well. He had a rough time at last Saturday, which is unlike him. But he's put 2 back-to-back fighting performances in there. I mean, it was a game that you could split up into parts, I suppose. The first half was Barnet parking the bus and us trying to grind them down. That goal obviously was crucial. Changed the nature of the game. Second half, I thought the first 15 minutes, I just thought we were going to pick them off on the break because they come out and we're going to score more goals. We missed some decent chances. Oh wow, that last half hour, we were really into the cosh, weren't we?
Well, if you look at that last half an hour and look at how much Barnet pressed us, you know, they didn't have too many clear-cut chances, but you just wonder if they came here in the first half and didn't park the bus, they might not be where they are in the league. You know, they were putting us under good pressure, and you know, they'll be disappointed that they come away here with no points. But Wrexham, we saw the game out just about, and a 1-0 win and a clean sheet as well.
I mean, I 100% agree with you. And that's okay, they've got injuries as well, and that's an issue. I accept that. They've only had 4 subs today, but the team, it looks very much with the intention of keeping clean sheets. The first half, they were very negative. I've got to say, looking at my notes as well, because that's what the highlights will be made from, I've only written down 3 attacks by them that are worthy of any notes. 1 in the first minute of the second half, and then 2 in the last 10 minutes. And yet, in that last half hour, they caused us real problems down the flanks, and you just think, wow, if they'd come at us from the start, they may well have come away with something from this match.
I think they'd have definitely got something, you know. It was difficult for us to break them down in that first half, but it was a great relief to get that goal from Bevan in the first half, because I think otherwise it would have been much the same in the second half, and it probably would have ended a 0-0 with a tough Barnet side just sitting back over and over.
Absolutely, yeah. They showed in the first half they could defend, because we didn't create all that much, but we were patient. We ground away at them, and Bevan's finish was a good opportunistic effort, wasn't it?
It was. Ball played in from Carrington on the left hand side. I think it was intended for Holroyd, and it didn't go to Holroyd, and Bevan picked up on that, ran in and finished it like Maguire drew earlier in that half. Didn't, you know, he had that clear cut chance where you thought if Wrexham didn't get that goal from Bevan, it would have been one that he'd have really been disappointed with.
The match call then?
I'll give it to Bevan, I think. Great work from start to finish, tracking back. You know, he's a 34-year-old, and he's one of the hardest players in this team, hardest working players. So no, got the goal as well. My man of the match. Yeah,
I would have gone the same as well. I completely agree with you there. I mean, his work rate, he was creative, he was sparky, he was winning headers in the first half. Some of his little flicks on towards Holroyd and then Fondop as well in the second half were terrific, and he worked back and made some good tackles as well. The only other one that had come into my mind would have been maybe Kevin Roberts, who bombed up and down the flank well and won a lot of tackles. Although it should be said, in the latter stages they managed to get quite a few crosses in from his side, often I think because they were overloading him. Yeah. But Roberts was very, very robust and aggressive in the way that he defended. Pearson did well too, and Lawler, I thought, and I'd like to have seen Summerfield being able to get into more advanced positions, perhaps. I
would have liked to have seen maybe Walker and Wright just sitting a bit behind Summerfield and being a bit more creative, but you know, right alongside Summerfield, that's kind of the formation and the kind of set out Ricketts has put in there, so I'm guessing he's not wanting to change that too much.
Yeah, absolutely. No need to complain anyway, because Wrexham showed real character here. They dug in. I said at the start of the broadcast that Wrexham need to get a win here now, having had a 1 point out of 6 on the road. They needed just to get 3 points under their belts and be positive, and they've done exactly that and shown a bit of character to boot. With a final score of Wrexham 1, Barnet 0, I'll hand back to the studio.
This is the Final Whistle podcast with the Wrexham AFC media team.